ESBR Boxing, myself and Paul Kelly, we are back, which brings you to believe and me to believe also that we are going to be here in preview mode. Cracking fight this weekend. We've got three fights we're looking to break down over the course of today, but we're going to join the first one here, which is, I suppose, a subject dear to Paul Kelly's heart because we are featuring an Irishman against, I suppose, an American. There's Belfast man, Padraig McCrory, 18-0, 9 KOs versus Edgar Berlanga, 21-0. 16 KO record. A fight that's taking place at super middleweight out of the Caribe Royal Orlando Hotel. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. As always, an absolute delight to be with you. As we like to do, we don't like to do too much of a tail of the tape. I've given the records there just for a bit of context. But the first question I'm going to ask you, actually, Paul, is about Berlanga. Obviously, I said the perfect record, a few coaches record, but maybe not the strongest CV as well. So what I'm going to ask you actually is Edgar Berlanga, Paul, a hype job or not?
Straight in, mate. Straight in, and I love it. Yeah, can't wait for this fight. But to answer your question, I think he is a wee bit. Um, Hard to say considering he's still young. He's only 26, as you mentioned, 21-0 record, 16 KOs. But if you actually dive a little deeper into his record, he was 16-0 with 16 KOs, and his last five fights have all gone the distance. I'm pretty sure. So since he stepped up a marginal level, like he was icing boys in the first round, second round. But like, who was he fighting really? Do you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I think he does have a bit of a padded record, and yeah, for me, he is a hype job. Like, I'm not saying, he's the favorite for this fight, and he beat Jason Quigley last time out. Quigley, an elite amateur, Irish fighter. But Berlanga's shown in his short career that I think he's a little, as Kell Brook would say, delicate around the whiskers. Um, I think he's maybe bit chinny, which we'll potentially find out against Paddy McCrory this weekend. But yeah, mate, I think to answer your question, for me, at this moment in time, I'm calling him a hype job, but it could be completely wrong. He could go on to dominate at super middleweight. Who knows? But yeah, mate, to answer your question, I think he is a bit of a at this current moment in time, he hasn't proved anything to me other than the fact that he could be a hype job with a bit of a glass chin.
Oh, I love it, Paul. You know what, Paul? I'm actually fully on board with this here. You and I did a video, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago for the Munguia fight, where we were talking about who has the most, sort of padded record in boxing. Obviously, Munguia. There's that Ramirez, obviously up at light heavy. Gilberto Ramirez, but I think Berlanga. Not saying obviously he's isn't necessarily as bad as those, but he has got a padded record. I look at this record, and I think 21-0. People call him this massive banger, 16 KOs, etc. I'm not seeing it, Paul. Like you said, we've got like on the CV recently, like you said, you've got Steve Rolls in there, Caceres. Like these aren't names that are necessarily like that elite level. Like Quigley's a good win, to be fair. That is a good victory. But other than that, you're looking at it, and that record for a guy who's 21-0 doesn't look the best. So I actually agree with you. I think Belanga is in dangerously in hype job territory at the moment. And I suppose what we're going to be wondering, what we're going to be unpicking here in a minute before we get to predictions, is going to be whether your man from Belfast, Paddy McCrory, be the man to sort of end the hype. But just, I suppose, talking a bit on Berlanga, and obviously you mentioned this fight's taking place at super middleweight. Belt's obviously up there, held by a combination of Canelo, and obviously you've got Benavides up there, Morel, fighters of that nature that are high on the rankings. Do you think Berlanga, I mean, like you said, he's still only young. And someone like Canelo obviously is kind of transcending to the last stage of his career, I suppose. Do you think that Berlanga could win a world title in his career, potentially at super middleweight or any other weight, or do you think he'll be found and he'll come unstuck and come undone at some point?
Yeah, I really don't think I can't see Berlanga winning a world title at all. Definitely not at super middleweight. Even if you're thinking of in years to come, like he is still young, he's only 26, he's still got a lot of learning to do, and even if he does is to lose one or two, he can keep on coming again. But for me, he's just not good enough. Like he's clearly a massive puncher, yes, fair play, he's got a big punch, but actual boxing ability, IQ, and skill set, I don't think he's anywhere near world level, unless he drastically improves. I could name, not going to, but I could name probably if I sat down and looked at the rankings from like number one way down, I could be like, yep, he'll beat Berlanga. Yep, he'll beat Berlanga. Do you know what I mean? There's quite a lot of fighters I would pick to beat Edgar Berlanga. Um, One of which could be the man he's fighting this weekend, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, to answer your question, mate, I don't really think Berlanga can win a world title for me.
No, you know what, Paul? Again, we are two for two here. I totally agree with you as well. I don't think Belanga's going to win a world title. I agree with what you're saying as well. I think he's all right against a certain level of fighter, but when he gets that championship sort of level of fighter, he will come unstuck. And we also talk about being potentially chinny as well. We could see that obviously tested the higher up he goes. But we are, as you mentioned, as you alluded to, we are going to have to give predictions. We are in prediction mode as one of the staples of the preview show. Paul, I don't know. We've agreed 2 for 2 here. I don't necessarily know if we're going to agree 3 for 3, but I'm going to come for you here and say, look, Paul, Paddy McCrory, Evan Berlanga, who wins, how, and why, and where, and when? Talk to me.
Well, mate, this fight is being billed shootout, and I think it is a shootout. To be honest with you, I think someone is getting stopped. But obviously, you know which way I'm going. You know which way I'm going. Paddy McCrory is going to become the first man to defeat Edgar Berlanga, and he's going to beat him via stoppage. He's going to knock him out in the mid rounds. I'm fully
Run,
on the
son.
train. Let's go. Let's go. There's no stopping him. In all seriousness, mate, it is a really, I think it is a competitive fight. I understand Berlanga is a favourite, and rightly so. McCrory, obviously, he's a former IBO light heavyweight world champion. He was a big underdog in that fight against Bunn. And you look at his record, right? And you think 18-0 with only 9 stoppages. You think he's not that much of a big puncher, but he is. Mate, he's a big puncher. I'm telling you now, Paddy McCrory. If he can land on Edgar Berlanga, it's all about if whether he can land. If he's the one to land first, because equally I do think if Berlanga lands on the chin of McCrory, he could stop him. But if McCrory lands his big shots on Berlanga first, he's not getting up, mate. He's going down. Jason Quigley landed a couple of big shots that looked like they affected Berlanga. McCrory punches way harder than Jason Quigley. Mate, I'm going for it. I'm going all in. Can't wait. Bring on the haters in the comments telling me that I'm only going for it because he's the Belfast man. But yeah, Paddy McCrory's going to knock him out in the mid rounds, mate. I'm telling you.
You know what, Paul? I can't fault your enthusiasm, and B, I'll never be a Paul Kelly hater. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize that. I actually hope more than anything that this result comes in that you predicted. My prediction, unfortunately, is going to steer slightly to the opposite of this, but I'm actually going to go for points. I actually think Berlanga might win on points. Frankly, I've just got a sense that, like you say, the distance has been obviously the distance in his last 5 fights. McCrory necessarily he's fought obviously 10 rounds. It's been 10 rounds, obviously the last couple of fights as well. But even in those sort of 12 round fights he's had, it's been KO stoppages early along. So I just think maybe the conditioning and Berlanga might essentially be used to going a bit longer, might sort of pace it that way. And also the fact that it's in the US, I think, with McCrory being 35, Berlanga being an up and coming sort of fighter, essentially, I think it's almost, McCrory would have to win probably 20 rounds out of the 12 that are scheduled to get a decision. So that's why I think Berlanga will win on points. But I actually would love nothing more than to see the prediction of Paddy McCrory mid-round KO of Evan Berlanga. It would fill my heart with joy and it fill my head with joy as well. So Paul, thank you very much for sharing that. Guys, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this week. But as Paul said in alluded to, let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with anything we've said, who you agree with or disagree with, I suppose, on the outcome of the main event there. Whether we think Paul's enthusiasm potentially blinded him, or whether you're fully on board the train as well, riding, to Orlando from Belfast for the KO. Let us know. Also, we've got other, content coming up as well. Obviously, reviews, previews, big fight breakdowns of other events that are coming along. Check out the channel for those. Paul, as always, fantastic to be joined by you. And guys, as always, thank you very much for watching.
Cheers, mate.